Then pause.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Video Game Development for Library Activities and Outreach webinar. My name is George Bergstrom, and I am the Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator today. Our presenter this afternoon is Keaton Johansson, Library Media Specialist at the Henry Madden Library at California State University at Fresno. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. Today's session is 1 hour, and so you will get 1 TLEU. If you're watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your TLEU are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can also find those instructions on the Indiana State Library's Continuing Education website under LEU policies. Without further ado, I will now turn the presentation over to Keaton.
Thank you, George, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. At Fresno State, at the library, I'm also the point person for XR, VR, AR technology and immersive content creation, which is the birthplace of this information that I get to share with you today. Let's get after it. So what we'll discuss today: what is a game engine? What is Unreal Engine? What can you do with it? How can we as library professionals use it? I'll give you some examples about how I've used it so far, and then I'll give you a little demonstration on how to get started. So first off, what is a game engine? The technical definition would be that it's the basic software framework for a video game. For our purposes, though, think of it as a software development environment, like a toolbox geared towards making video games. Yes, but that's right. It's not just for games. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So there are several game engines that you can choose from, right? There's Unity, there's Godot, there's GameMaker, there's several others as well. At the Fresno State Library, we mostly use Unreal Engine, and that's because it allows you to make great looking products very quickly with a relatively low learning curve. And there are several like this, but it's free. Hey, that's always a plus. So how about some examples of things that some products from Unreal Engine that you might recognize? Everybody knows Fortnite, right? Everybody knows Fortnite, made with Unreal Engine. Hellblade, if you got any fans out there, the Batman Arkham series. Unreal Engine is how they got those lights and shadows. And I'm avoiding any puns. Paragon, Epic, the company that makes Unreal Engine, they're very, very proud of Paragon. You might be familiar. But so what is it capable of, right? We've seen some examples of what has been done. What's it capable of? So remember, it's not just for games. That's just what it's geared towards. So let me give you some examples. What can you do with it? Basic user interfaces. You can actually use Unreal Engine, game engines in general. You can actually use them. Think of it like a CMS, a content management system that is endlessly customizable. I'll give you a bit of an example. Actually, this is one that I did here. I'm a bit of a minimalist. You might be able to tell from this video here. And as it says at the top, this is an interface for tracking the training of our student assistants. So you can choose from various lists that you create yourself, training lists, and you can keep track of multiple students at a time, even with different trainings. And you can see very simple, put in the name of the student. I designed all this myself. Yes, some of it's kind of wonky. But it's internal use. You can toggle back and forth between the students, and it'll keep track of where they are in their training. And as you tick things off in a list, once everything's ticked off, there's a place to put in the name of the trainer, right? Hey, high five. So where does this information go, though? What can you do with it? Well, it posts to a Google Sheet where I get a timestamp, the name of the student that was trained, and the name of the student that trained the other student assistant, so I can hold on to that for later. What else can you do with it? cinematics, any kind of video content is very powerful and very easy to use for cinematics. Think directional information, think descriptive information. Let's get an example here. A wonderful aerial view here, zooming in on a fantastic model of this facility with some interesting graphics to show movement. One of the things that's extra special about using Unreal for cinematics is you can peel away layers like this and show what's actually happening inside. You can throw in these wonderful graphics here for descriptions. And what if you want to show a process or some directional information? Obviously, you can throw that in as well. So take a look as this camera pans out here. We can get a full overview of all of these different spaces, and we can even see how they're used, and we can see a sort of pipeline. Think about applying that to your library. I've actually been working on that myself. Here's another interesting use of Unreal Engine specifically for cinematics. This comes from the Mandalorian show. I'm sure everybody's familiar to a certain degree. So they used Unreal Engine to create virtual cameras that actually track with the live cameras and entirely virtual sets. And they're using these wraparound LCD screens that cast the light from the virtual set real time onto the characters and the rest of the set, the props. You can see they use it in combination with other techniques like green screen, and it can be edited live. If you don't like the way something's set up, you simply change it in Unreal Engine and it changes live right there on set. Very powerful use of game engine. Of course, this use when it maps to libraries tends to be when you have those facilities that can handle something higher. But this technology can be very easily mapped to smaller spaces with lower resources using the virtual camera. I'm willing to answer questions about that later. What else can you do with it? Of course, extended reality, AR, VR, that kind of stuff. Very powerful. This is how most of that content is done, is with a game engine, especially something like Unreal, because the graphics are so powerful in Unreal. So think of immersive storytelling, like those 360 videos that you'll see online, like on YouTube, where you can control the direction of the camera. Now put that inside a VR headset, and you can get some really excellent sociological content for your patrons to interact with. I won't be going into depth in XR in this webinar, but again, if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat or reach out to me later. So how about some examples of things that I've done so far? Specific library use. This one is very apropos of this month, a zombie chase video game. So this was a video game that I made for a Halloween event that was happening at our student union on campus. I can give you a bit of what this looks like as it's being played. So this was an opportunity for us as the library to interject ourselves into a social gathering. You know, say, hey, we're hip, we're with it. The library can be cool too. It was our first attempt to gamify library activities and really make things fun. Most importantly, this was an opportunity for direct outreach to the students. You can see this is actually a creepier but realistic rendering of our library from the inside. So students, as they're being chased by zombies out of the library, get to learn the library spaces a little better. Of course, it's not actually made of gravel and grime, nor are there zombies in the library most days. Nevertheless, so this is an opportunity for testing for buy-in for this kind of game development as a service in the library. When the student completes the game, whether they're caught or they actually make it out, they get a chance to put in their email address to be contacted later about interest in making these sorts of games like this. Some of you may recognize the dance moves that those zombies are going after. Another one is the library scavenger hunt. So we have an activity already on campus that is a scavenger hunt where students are given a sheet of paper with questions on it. And they just go throughout the library asking these questions, trying to learn about spaces. And I can tell you those students are never, ever actually having fun. So we started thinking, hey, why don't we make this fun? So I started working on this library scavenger hunt video game to replace those paper handouts. We can still give the same prompts. You can see the red bar on the screen underneath the character in that one shot, where we can still ask those questions, and they correspond with these glowing sort of morphing gold cages that you may see over the character in that same shot. And when the student gets to that cage, they get a little positive feedback. Hey, good job. And maybe they also get some sort of gamified monetary incentive that they can spend in other video game environments or for small things on campus in real life, gift cards, what have you. So nice, easy rewards, some positive feedback to something that had been boring previously. You remember that Google Sheets simple backend database from the basic UI. You can also use that to live update these prompts and the locations of these cages by putting in your new prompts, putting in your new locations, and it'll live update in the game if you want to highlight new features and new areas. So it's a great way for the students to learn as they play, right? All right, let's talk about getting started. And since I've been focusing so much on Unreal Engine, let's talk about getting started with Unreal Engine. Thank you. So first off, the licenses, right? There are two different licenses. The good news right off the bat, they're both free to use. The publishing license, as soon as you make your first million, if you're selling whatever you're making, as soon as you make your first million, then you have to start paying 5% royalty. Since we're using these things only for educational purposes, we use the creator's license and everything's free completely across the board. Plenty of support. So it's an excellent resource. Requirements. System requirements, right? Operating system, Windows 10, 64, right? Mac OS X 10.9.2 or higher. So it's not much of a stretch, right? The processor may be a little bit of a stretch for some people. The memory, that's not much of a stretch, right? 8 gigs of RAM is not much of a stretch. The video card compatibility with DirectX, look into it. But more importantly, once you download, install, and open Unreal Engine, you'll find that its settings are scalable. So you can bring it way down so that if you don't have high enough settings to run it at an optimal rate, once you scale it down, your system will be able to handle it much better. You'll be able to run smoothly and you won't have all of that lag. It's very easy to work with in that. But now, what about getting things into Unreal to make it nice to actually use it for your purposes, right? How about some sources for free assets? There are tons and tons of sources for free assets. We have things like Mixamo for free characters and free animations. We have things like TurboSquid. A lot of people use things like TurboSquid for 3D printing models. Lots and lots of free. There's paid content on there as well, but lots of different free models on there, as well as the SketchUp 3D Marketplace. Lots of free models on there. SketchUp also has a free web-based 3D modeling platform. Again, you might know that from 3D printing services. There are other free options for 3D modeling if you want to go that route. If you're all that, if you're cool and you think you can get it done all by yourself. It's hard, believe me, it's hard, but absolutely. If you think you can get it done, there are things like Blender, which is free for 3D modeling, in addition to SketchUp. And Autodesk has some software that's free for educational use, like Maya, Mudbox, 3ds Max, things like that. Obviously, for the 3D modeling software like that, the system requirements are a bit higher, so just be aware of that. Now let's take a look at how to get started on this. What can we do? Let me bring up Unreal. Of course, it's going to make me sign in. Don't watch. You might see my login information. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to mock up a reference interaction with Unreal Engine to show how it can be used. So once it lets me in, I'll give you an idea of what that looks like. while that's working, let's go ahead and something else we're going to need. Let's go ahead and pull down a model to put into our environment. Yeah, let's get a desk. We'll get a reference desk. We'll use Turbo Squid because that sounds nice. Yeah, I like this one. Let's use this one. Yeah, let's download that one. It's nice. It's super fancy. I'm sure all of us have reference desks that are that fancy. So we'll use that one. Go ahead and put that on my desktop and we'll come back to that later. All right, so here's the Epic launcher for Unreal Engine. I'm going to go to the library here and for the sake of time, open up a project that I already had started. But let's make sure I can get it on the screen where you can see it. Huh? Hey, all right, there we go. So this is the basic environment. I'm not going to go too detailed. I want to show you how easy it is to get some of this done. So I'm going to go to a map. I'm going to duplicate this map. This is going to be my new world. Let's hop in there. Yeah, go and save that. And let's see what this looks like. We got a whole bunch of stuff, a whole mess of stuff that we don't need. So I'm just going to get rid of all this stuff. We're going to make this look a lot prettier. Well, I want to keep the ground. Let's get rid of, we don't need this sign that says third person. We don't need that floating bit there. All right. Let me show you something here. Again, in the Epic launcher. So Epic, Unreal Engine has their own marketplace as well, where you can get a lot of free content. They have a swath of free content that that they release every month, new content every month, in addition to plenty of other stuff. So I have something here. One thing that they throw out new stuff every month are these amazing scans. I'm trying to stay away from puns like these epic scans because the company's called Epic. Forget about it. You'll see these scans are super detailed. This is actual content. This isn't photography. This is actual content in Unreal Engine. Well, I happen to have those scans in here. It's called the Abandoned Factory. So let's go ahead and let's throw some walls in here, because I'm sure everybody's library looks like an insane factory out of like a zombie universe or something like that. So let's recreate these zombie universes that all of our libraries obviously are. I'm going to rotate some of these things around. Try to make this look nice. We'll see how nice I can make this actually look. Whoa, my. Sure you can get the idea that this is fairly easy. Yes, I do know what I'm doing. I have been doing this for a while. Well, I should say I do know what I'm doing, despite what it looks like. I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to put all these things into place, and we're going to check it out and see how nice it looks when I'm done. It's not going to be perfect, but for a really quick thing, if you're not happy with it, hey, you can go and make your own. All right, it's not great, but it's not bad. I think we need something on top. We need some sort of roof. I know my library is not an open ceiling there, but maybe yours is. If it is, hey, that's cool. I'm not judging. Let's make this thing huge. Yeah, why not? That looks great. I can't see it from underneath. Let's turn that around. Good enough. At least it looks like an actual room now. But I don't like this floor being blank. So let's grab a material here. I'm going to duplicate this material and call it my material so that I can mess with it. Let's see what it looks like when I put it on there. Well, I don't know any tiles that are actually that big. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. And I'm just going to real quick. This is the sizing for this. Let's make this bigger. Or make the sizing bigger. It makes the tile smaller. You'll see. You'll see. And okay, that looks a lot more realistic. Great. let's see how all right, we've got our desk. Let's bring our desk in. I'm going to go here to the content, and I'm going to make a new folder to put some stuff in. And we're just going to call this webinar. I'm going to open that up, and from off screen, from the magic of off screen, I'm going to pull in this file that I downloaded of this desk and say import all. Give me all of it, every little bit of it, and then we can drop it into our scene. Almost everything is drag and drop. It's fantastic. You might not think it's so fantastic in a minute. All right, so we've got all these things with the blue bar underneath. Those are all the meshes, the 3D parts, right? So I'm going to pull that in, and good Lord, that's enormous. So let's cut that whole thing in half. That's a little more realistic. All right, let's put that in place. I like it. I like it there. If you don't like it there, you can make your own. All right. Now, since we're doing a reference interaction, okay, wait, hold on. All this stuff is white. All the colors came in white. Something that Unreal Engine gives you right out of the box, all you have to do is ask for it when you start up a project, is plenty of starter content. All these materials that you can just drag and drop on. So I'm gonna grab some of those. I like this oak. Let's make some things oak. Good enough. Let's make this desk oak. I like it. Let's get this burnished steel. We're gonna make some things burnished steel and some things gold. Let's make these things gold. I'm just gonna make this look a little nicer real quick. Lots of gold everywhere, because inside this zombie factory, this librarian is rolling in it. Everything is gold. Let's see, let's do something for this chair. Actually, it's pretty good. Let's get a glass texture for this. I like that about the desk. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's get a librarian. We need somebody to talk to in here. So let's get this librarian. This is just an animation file of a bot sitting, and they talk during playtime. So let's do that. Let's put a talking librarian in there so it's a little more realistic. Put this librarian generally in place, but you know what? Let's be a little more inclusive here. Let's make it a female. We've got our male that we'll play as and our female librarian who's sitting there talking. All right, fantastic. It's a great start. So like I said, we're going to try to mock up a reference interaction. So we need to capture some information, right, from this reference interaction. Let's go here. This is where you're going to start to see things get a little more complicated, but hey, we're recording, so you can look back at it later. This is the scripting system. This is all the game logic and everything. You'll see it's all node-based, so it's very easy to use. We're going to have a custom event, add custom event. That means just something that we can tell this to do later when we want it to. And we're going to call this send reference details. We're going to try to call it reference details. All right. So what do we want to happen? We want a few things here. We want to capture some information. Hey, I've got some variables here. Let's let me show you making some of these variables. I'll show you exactly what this looks like from scratch. So I'm going to add a variable, and we want to know 3 things from this reference interaction. We want to know what kind of item, what material type the patron wants. And we're going to have these string variables. That just means words that we can work with later. We want another one that's going to be the subject of this material that they want. And then we'll have the name of the actual patron. So with these things, the first thing we're going to do is let's jump back over here and let's look at the settings. There's a plugin that will make all this work called VAREST, VAREST, VAREST. It allows you to use the JSON scripting language from Unreal Engine. So you don't have to actually know JSON. You just get to use these nodes. It's fantastic. All right, so the first thing we need to do, though, again, remember this is all recorded so you can actually use this later, and I have a tutorial I can share with you as well. We want to construct a JSON. We need to tick this box off, a JSON request. And this target, everything needs a target. We're going to make this context sensitive, and we're going to say get hey, get that. So this is going to make the JSON happen. What do we want to do? We want to post. That's a JSON term for put this information new into a place and into the request body of this place. This return value, we're going to right click and promote to a variable, which we're going to call the request. Basically just save this for later. We're going to use that later. Off of here, we're going to get request object. And because we need to promote that to a variable, and we're going to very creatively name that request object. We're going to hook up these here. These are the execute strings there. Okay, so we're saving those two things for later. Now we need to construct a JSON. Need to check that back off again. String value. Remember, we're working with string variables here. So again, this target, we need to get context sensitive, this subsystem again. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this item variable, whatever words we put into that item variable, we're going to put it through this JSON process, and then we're going to set field. This means this is JSON language again. We are going to tell it to take this information and put it in a field, a column in a database with the same name. And the request, this should be the request object for the target. Let me double check. Yes, it is. Fantastic. Now we have 3 variables, so we're just going to, we need to duplicate this a couple of times. We're going to do this a couple more times with these other variables. So instead of item, we want our subject. So we're going to do the same thing. Subjects. Make sure I spelled it properly. And hook up this last one, get rid of item, and let's do the same thing with the name. Make sure the field name matches. All right, so we're gonna gather all this information, and we're telling this JSON request, take these words and put them in these columns with the same name. Let's see. So now let's get the request object here, and we need to set request object. Yes, set the request object. We're saying for this request, make this request object that we told you to get the request object, JSON stuff. And then the last thing we need to do here is process the URL. In other words, we're going to send this someplace in a URL. Again, the target will be the request. Send this request to a URL. Let's go ahead and promote that to a variable so we can tell it what we want it to be. But where are we going to send this? I'm so glad you asked. Let me show you where we're going to send this. I'm going to go back here to my Google Drive, and I am going to make a Google Sheet. It's probably not a surprise to those of you who are paying attention to me talking about using Google Sheets earlier. This is how this works. So this is my Unreal reference. And we need to make those columns that we were talking about that we told the JSON request to post to. So item, subject, and name. And I'm going to add one more because I like to know when things happen. Timestamp. So how are we going to get these two things to talk? You guys ask the best questions. We're going to go over here to Tools, Script Editor. We're going to use Google Script. Yes, let's do this. So I have here, so we don't have to worry too much about the script. I have the script. So we're just going to copy the whole thing. And I can share this with you later. Also, I'm going to copy the whole thing and paste it in there. We're going to give this a name, Unreal reference. And there's only one thing that we need to change in here. This script gives you all the information you need to know, all of the directions on how to use it. So there's only one thing we need to change, and that's the ID of the sheet, the Google Sheet that we're using. After this D slash, that whole string of madness all the way to /edit, that is the ID. So we're going to copy that and then come in here and switch this out to our new one. And just like that, we have it. Our script is ready to go. We'll save it. And then it tells us up here to go to run setup. What we want to do is go run the function setup. And it's going to try to do this, and then it's going to ask me for permission. And I'm going to tell it, yes, I am me. And yes, you have my permission. And now it's running the setup function that on its own will make sure that everything's all synced up between this script and your Google Sheet. So then the next thing it tells us to do is to go to publish, deploy as web app. And then we need to say something special about it. This is version 1. And then who has access to the app? You need to make sure it's anyone, even anonymous, because Google's not going to recognize Unreal Engine, right? So you need anybody to be able to run this, anybody who has the permission. We already gave Unreal permission. So deploy, and this is our URL right here. So we're going to copy that and hit OK, hop back into Unreal, and we're going to compile, tell it to save everything that we've done so far, and select this URL. Over here in the default value area, we are going to paste our new URL and then tell it again to compile. So now our project is set up to save all this information and put it in that spreadsheet. But how are we going to get it actually from the patron? The patron needs some way to interact with it, right? Let's pop into our webinar folder and let's create some stuff. I'm going to stretch this up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Yes, just get rid of it. I need some space. Get rid of it quicker. Thank you. All right. I'm going to right click and add a user interface. I'm adding a widget, which is something that we can just put on the screen. We're going to add a widget for each of those variables that we want to get information from. So this one will be the item widget. And let's pop that open and see what that looks like. So this is supposed to represent the screen. What we're going to do is we're going to take a border element and just drag and drop it onto this canvas. And that's our border. We're going to set the anchor to the full bottom of the screen. And we're going to set our offsets. We're telling this where to go. And that looks good. We'll do it like that. And we'll change the color of the inside here. Be something a bit darker. That'll be a little easier to see, but a little smoky where you can kind of see through it a little bit because we're going to be edgy about this. We're in a zombie factory with our super fancy gold desk. All right, so what are we going to add to this? Let's add a vertical box to this border. That just means that we can stack other elements vertically inside this vertical box. These elements that we need are, we're going to throw some text in there, and that text is going to say, hello, what can I get for you? We have a very nice librarian. Hello, what can I get for you? We're going to make this text a little bigger though. We'll do that. What else do we need in there? We need a horizontal box for the other couple of things that we're putting in. So again, put a horizontal box in there. That means I can stack things, or I can line things up horizontally in that box. What I need are a couple of buttons. We're going to do a button, and on each of those buttons, there's going to be text. Buttons with text. So the text on, let's see, let's make these a little nicer. There we go, that's better. So the text on this side is going to say book. Okay, so we're talking about items. I want a book. Let's make this black so it's easier to see. And on this side, we're going to say I want a game. Again, let's make it black so it's easier to see. So since this is our game button, let's call this game button. We have very creative names. And since this is our book button, don't beat me to the punch. It's a book button. So this is what our widget's going to look like in the screen. And this is the designer area. Let's pop over to the graph area where we can use our nodes to tell it what we want it to do. I'm going to grab this book button and come down here to add this event on clicked. When this book button is clicked, what do I want it to do? Well, I want it to get the player character, and we're going to tell it to cast to the third person character, which is, that's that blueprint that we're using with all those variables in it, right? So, whoop, beg your pardon. So we're going to tell it, whoever we're playing at, go and get that blueprint with all those variables. And we're going to tell this to set the item variable. And since this is the book button, the item variable will be book. And then off of that, once we have that, we don't need it anymore. We don't need that widget anymore. So we're going to tell it to create we're going to tell it accurately to create a new widget. Let's see, we need to get the player controller. And we're going to tell it to add this new one to the viewport, add it to the screen, right? And then remove from parent, the target here being self, being this widget that we're creating. So remove from parent, remove from the screen, tell it to go away. So we've got our new one that we'll add to the screen, and we'll remove this one. Now let's grab the game button and give it the same thing. When it's clicked, what do we want it to do? The same thing. So we'll just duplicate that, but instead of book, we want this to say game. And we want it to do the same over here. So we'll just hook it up to the same thing. Hey, great. When I hit compile, it's going to yell at me because I haven't told it what kind of widget it should create. Let's go over here and duplicate this one and make a new widget for capturing the subject variable and open that up. Let's see. This keeps, let me resize this a little bit. All right. So in this item widget, now I can go in here and tell it, I want you to use the subject widget. Create the subject widget when you're done. Now in here, we have a couple of things that we want to change because we don't want it to look the same. First off, our text. We already know what type of thing we can get. So what do you want it to be about? We want the subject, right? So let's go ahead and remove this button. We don't need that button anymore. Instead, we want a way for our patron to put in some new information, right? An editable text field. So that means they can put in the information themselves. Move that off to the side a little bit. And this is not going to be a game button anymore. This is going to be an OK button. So we're going to make it say OK. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, let's go over to the graph. We don't need it to do the same things anymore. We don't have this book button. Instead, we have this editable text field. Let's go ahead and compile. Let's make this a little bigger so I can get to everything. Instead, we want this on text changed. So in other words, when something changes in the text field, we want it to capture it. We don't want the item anymore. Instead, we want set subjects. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this directly, set the subject with what the patron is putting in that field. Down here for the OK button now, we don't need any of this. We just need it to say, OK, go to the next widget. And we'll compile that, and it's going to yell at us again. Hold on, we're making the new widget. Let's duplicate this one and get our name widget. In this name widget, well, first off, again, begging your pardon, we're going to go into the subject widget here and tell it to use the name widget. Create the name widget. And now let's go get this name widget. And we don't want it to say the same thing either. Instead, we want to say, what is your name? What's your sign? Where are you from? And everything else looks great. So let's pop back over here. And the only difference for the text that we're capturing is we don't want the subject variable. We want to set the name variable. Let's hook that up, get that in. And yeah, we still want it to, we want to give a little feedback. So we're going to create another widget here. Let's go out and one more widget. We're going to duplicate this and we're going to make a success widget. And again, go back in here and tell it, make the success widget. Hooray. And back over here, let's open up that success widget. And all we want this to do, let's get rid of this whole horizontal box. We just want this to say, we'll get that ready for you. In the library. See you soon. Excellent. All right, that'll do. Great. Over here in the graph, we don't want it to do any of this. We just want event construct. Event construct means whenever this widget is made, like by the name widget, do this thing. We're gonna just tell it to wait for 2 seconds. Just wait for 2 seconds, and then remove from parent. Remove itself make itself go away. So wait for 2 seconds and then go away. So then there we go. We've got a way to capture all of this information, but how do we do the interaction part? How do we get the patron to actually interact? Let's go into another blueprint for the whole level. And what we're going to do here is, let's say a mouse event. When somebody clicks, we want them to click on the librarian here. Click on the librarian. And then we want something to happen. So we're going to say get hit results. Let's tick off context sensitive. Get hit result under cursor, the mouse cursor by channel. Let's get player controller here. And then this hit result here, we're going to break this, split this struct pin, it says, in a bunch of pieces. We want this hit result hit actor, so that the librarian, right? What did we click on? Let's get the display name. And you may remember this librarian has the name over here, sitting. So let's just check and see if the display name contains sitting. And if it does, we're going to use this result value into a branch that just says, is this true or false? Does it contain sitting or doesn't it? Get this here and plug it in. And if it does, then we're going to create our item widget. Get the player controller here, and we're going to add the viewport, and just like that, we're good to go. So let's play, huh? Let's see how this works. Let me drag this over where we all can see it. All right, so here I am in this environment. I'm walking over. Hey, there's our librarian. She's talking. Let's click on her. Hey, look at that. All right, what can I get for you? How about a game? What do you want it to be about? Oh, the font's a little small, but I said dragons. Let's have a game about dragons. What's your name? My name is Sven. Oh, okay, Sven. We'll get that ready for you in the library. See you soon. All right, well, let's check now and see if that worked. Let's go over to our spreadsheet. Whoop. Go away here. Go to our spreadsheet. It did not. I always love when things don't work on game day. So let's pop back over here and see. It's usually the URL widget that had a problem. No, the URL widget looks just fine. We have everything all set up. I mean, to a certain degree, you can just trust me on this. Clearly, I've made it work before, but I always like to be able to actually show it. We got all that there. New world, we're adding that to the viewport. The important part would be here. We're capturing the URL and we're sending it out. We've got all of those things in the proper field. Post, request body. Yeah, everything looks good. Let's make sure one more time on this that we've got the proper key in here. That is the same key. And we save, go back to publish, and we're going to get the same URL. Update, let's just in case it's a new URL, and come back in here and go to our URL here. And we're going to update the whole thing. That looks the same to me. Let's save the whole thing. And play one more time and see how it works. Clicked on it, we're getting a game. This time it's going to be about forks. And my name is Darby. Get that ready for you in the library. Let's see. Are we getting it ready in the library? Over here, we've got nothing. Well, I apologize for that. It worked every single time besides this that I've worked on it. But perhaps considering the time, we can open it up to questions, and I can troubleshoot that just to explain to you. Yeah, thanks, Karen. That's programming for you. It only doesn't work when I'm showing it. Every other time, it works very well, let me tell you.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, we did get quite a few questions, so I will go
Okay.
ahead and start going through these, and then obviously, if people have others as we're going through, you can put them in. One of the simple ones I'll get right off the bat is the GPU requirements for Unreal Engine. I guess someone,
Yeah, so I mean, usually it's the higher the better is how that works. So let me go back to the
All right.
requirements here. Yeah, so here are the requirements. You do want to have a rather robust GPU, but you want to just have a GPU card is the best way to go about it. I've helped people run Unreal Engine on very, very stripped down devices. But when they don't have a GPU card at all, that's when it starts to get hard.
Okay. Next, would it be okay for a library to make the creator version or educator version, whichever it was called, available to their patrons, say in a makerspace? Or would that be crossing the line to where they need to use the one that had the $1 million?
So the defining line for Epic as a company is, are you making money on it? If you're not making money on it, then you can use the creator's license. It's really as simple as that. They're very open about that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Okay, let's see here. Any opinion on Blocksmith XR for teaching kids how to design VR experiences?
No opinion thus far because I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
Very curious, and now that's added to my list.
Sure. I think this was kind of answered by people in the chat, but we'll go ahead and give it to you anyway. Does Unreal Engine have videos or trainings on how to edit the cinematic and all the other elements you were kind of going through?
I lost the feed a little bit there. Sorry, it glitched for a second, but I heard videos, right?
Yeah, does
Training stuff.
Unreal, right, do they provide training or is it just trusting YouTube?
No, there is a lot on YouTube, and there are some excellent developers on YouTube that share a lot. But Unreal themselves, they share very widely. They have probably at this point hundreds and hundreds of hour to 2 hour long tutorials on various different subjects. They are very, very helpful.
Perfect. Okay. Do you have to start at 0, or are there prefab templates for some of the various elements you were dragging in? I think you kind of highlighted this at the beginning, but
yeah, here. Yes, there are templates to a certain degree. The templates, like what you saw when I first opened up the project that I was sharing, right? That is just a template that's called a third person template, right? There's a first person template, there's a driver template, like if you have a navigational driving game kind of thing. There is a VR template as well. There are mobile templates, AR templates. It all looks that stripped down when you open it up. But like I showed, there's a lot of content that they will give you to customize it right off the bat. And then if you want to customize it any further, you have to go to those third parties or make it yourself.
I'm assuming this kind of falls into that training category, but are there libraries or definitions for all of the various functions and sort of key terms that you are using? Is there like a real easy place to find that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Unreal. I mean, go to the Unreal Engine website. You'll get all your tutorials. You'll get even more detailed descriptions of what the requirements are and how to work with different systems. And you'll get lots and lots of just explanatory sheets on all of this information.
All right, next one was, do you have, let me see if I can find the full thing. There we go. Curious if you have a process or order that you recommend when doing this. So for instance, would you set up the set first and then the decor and then the characters and then the function, or do you some other order of things, or is it just space by space?
Yeah, and it depends project by project. Most developers will probably tell you the same thing, that you want to start with the storyboard, what's going to happen, and then you start with the programming. Just use your basic whatever elements are in the template, right? Use those basic elements to just get it working, get all of the functionality happening, and then make it pretty.
Perfect. What would you say is the level of coding experience or knowledge that someone would need to do this? Or can anyone use this on a basic level?
Just about anyone can use this on a basic level. It does help to have some cursory knowledge of coding in general, but really just the logical elements of coding. If you've got a good grasp on logic in general, it should make sense. But then you will need to understand the terminology here and there. You can follow the tutorials without understanding the terminology, but if you want to depart from those tutorials, it helps to know the terminology and understand the logic of how coding works.
Perfect. So that's everything that I have so far. So if anyone would like a follow-up on the question that you put in, or if you need him to go into more detail, you can let me know. I am going to grab, while you all are thinking up any more questions, I'm going to grab the form for those of you who need to request the TLEU certificate. And I'm going to drop that in the chat for you all. All right, so if you need a certificate from us, you can go ahead and fill that form out. And while I was doing that, here we go. Would you recommend someone taking a coding tutorial, or the library offer it as an option in association with Unreal or some other program or event that you might do?
That's something that at Fresno State we're starting to look into, is the coding side of things. Everything that you do in Unreal can also be coded in C++, which is kind of the industry standard for video games and such. But I mean, as you can see, I know a bit about a few different languages, coding languages, but I know nothing about C++, relatively nothing about C++. And yet I was able to make most of this work. You have to trust me on that last little bit. I was able to make all of this work with just using those nodes, right? So you don't necessarily need that. Do I recommend it? A cursory knowledge, something helpful, helpful language, like depending on what your job classification is or your duties are. JSON is a very useful coding language to learn. So is SQL, JavaScript, Python. I'd recommend mostly Python and JSON. If you go through just a beginner course on those, the logic will make a lot more sense. So if you want to go that route, I recommend that.
Sure. Do you know of any online databases or sites that have complete projects for modding?
There are some. You'll actually get some of those through the Unreal Marketplace. People will throw this out. Other than that, it tends to get, you'll find someone Substack or Reddit. Usually it's all linking to GitHub repositories where people have uploaded their full project templates, but you can find a few of those on the Unreal Marketplace. It's usually going to be for a price, right? But you can find them.
Okay, let me check. I'm trying this one more time, guys, and then let me go back and see if there were any other questions. Lots of questions about the form link, which I think I've not got. Okay, so no other questions. Still not working, still not working. Ah, there we go. Okay, everyone's saying it's not working. Perfect. Okay. So if there are any last questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. It looks like the form is now accepting your requests for the TLEU. I will stick around for a while if anyone does want to hang out and ask any last questions. And I will get the chat, the recording, and any other resources that Keaton wants me to include. I'll get all that to everyone in an email, probably sometime Friday or Monday, depending on how the rest of the week goes. So we're seeing a whole lot of thanks and was interesting, and other accolades like that. So
Well, thank you. I'm happy to share. I'm very happy to share about this.
Yeah, and everyone have a great afternoon. Oh, one of the best webinars. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, at this point, people are just filtering out. So yeah, if you had any tutorial or any other resources you want to include with the recording, just send them to me and I'll get all that together.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, this was great.
All right, George, I'll talk to you later.
Yep, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.